don't think most people would think that Trump would acknowledge a guy's performance who did not show up to see him.
See, I think Trump may not know who the hell Jalen is.
That could be a better theory. Welcome back to yet another episode of The Inside Game. I, as always, am Paul Martino with my brother from another mother, Mr. Derrick Brooks.
What's up, brother?
I was lucky enough to get invited to go to the Eagles invite by the president to the White House on Monday last week.
Awesome.
And by the way, it was funny. I didn't know how I got invited at first because I could have been invited. I got different, right? Think about what the podcast is. Sports, politics, gambling. Shit, I could have been invited by 5 different people.
You're an informant.
Right? I could have been.
He's an informant.
I could have been. It turned out it was politics. Everybody in that audience, all politics people.
Wow.
So I didn't realize it, but it was a political. The only sports people were the Eagles up on the dais. Everybody in the audience, all politics people. They had 1 or 2 token people. They had Vince Papale up front. I got a good picture of my dad with Vince Papale doing an interview. But it was interesting. It was interesting to see the team there. It was interesting to see that Jalen Hurts didn't come.
Yeah.
Right?
And a couple others.
There were only a couple didn't, right? Basically, the 3 big offensive players, Jalen and the 2 wide receivers, they weren't there. Yeah. But by and large, the rest of the team was there. For me, the highlight, though, and I'll tell you, if you listen to the audio tape, you can hear this. The president called out Cooper DeJean. Mm-hmm. Cooper DeJean, if you watch the video of it, he's wearing an all-white suit. And so if you listen to the tape, you hear, "Exciting whites!" That was me. That was me right in front of the camera. And he definitely heard that I said "exciting whites" at the top of my lungs. But listen, if he shows up to the president's office in an all-white suit, yeah. I think he wanted somebody to say that.
Yeah, that or he thought he was going to a Diddy party.
I hope he didn't think he was going to now we know what's going on at Diddy parties. I hope he didn't want to go both.
There's no baby oil here. I'm at the wrong place.
Oh, no. How come the baby oil comes up in almost every episode, Brooks?
I don't know. It's something infatuated about.
Hey, Brooks, do you think the guy from Dateline would ever do an episode on Diddy?
Yes. He wants to do this so bad. Think about how he was.
Do you think you'd be one of the witnesses for that one?
I would love to. I've never been to a Diddy party, but I'd love to be there to be a witness of him talking about being at a Diddy party and saying, as you enter, it's eerie.
I don't understand.
Baby oil everywhere.
Brooks, we were talking about the NFL draft and Cooper DeJean, and somehow you're talking about baby oil again.
With the Dateline voice as a backer.
I think there's something a little bit wrong with you, Derrick. Mom always said that. Mom always said you got dropped on your head.
She said I think she called it attention deficit disorder.
Yeah. Oh, they call that different things now. I think they got more politically correct names for that.
Yeah. But
Mom used to always say, "I don't know about this one, Derrick."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to stay on track.
Yeah. So let's get back to it. So anyway, event was nice. Whoever wrote this, the president doesn't write his own speeches. Whoever wrote the speech, though, for Trump, it was really good. And if you watch, he hits all the highlights of it. He talks about the game. He talked, it was really good. He talked about the rematch about Kansas City. He brought Big Dom up.
Oh, that's cool.
He brought up Coach Sirianni. And then he actually had Jeffrey Lurie say a couple words. And so it was interesting. Almost everybody was there. Like I said, pretty much the only really noticeable absences were Hurts, Smith, and
A.J. Brown.
And A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown was probably reading his book. He might have just been in the Oval Office reading that self-help book.
Yep, no one told him.
Yeah.
We're going to the lawn. He's still inside.
He could be. And then it was interesting though. It was quick. It was 30 minutes. We were in and out of there. It was a nice day, and it was all politics people though. And it's just funny. It's funny to see how those two worlds kind of overlap with each other. The thing I think was most interesting though, and to me this is as a guy who has watched and seen Trump for a lot of years, the thing he did that I was surprised by. He acknowledged how good Jalen Hurts' performance was in the Super Bowl, even though he wasn't there.
They call that growth.
Now, I'm just saying that, I'm just telling you right now, maybe Trump didn't read the speech in advance, but I'm telling you, I don't think most people would think that Trump would acknowledge a guy's performance who did not show up to see him.
See, I think Trump may not know who the hell Jalen is.
That's going to be a better theory.
And he almost slipped and said, Jalen, come on up here. And the person in his ear is like, he's not here.
He's not here.
He's like, Jesus, why did I read that then?
So I like your theory, but let me tell you why I know that theory is wrong. Because the way I knew Jalen Hurts wasn't there was when the president was introduced. The president was introduced in a way, a guy comes over the loudspeaker, and he's announced as walking in with head coach Nick Sirianni and future Hall of Famer Lane Johnson. And so when I'm like, well, if Lane Johnson is the guy you're walking in with, I guarantee you Jalen Hurts did not come.
Lane got the nod.
If Lane got the nod, and so that's how I knew that Jalen Hurts wasn't going to be there.
Maybe Lane's behind this whole thing because he wanted to walk out.
Maybe he's the man behind it.
Jalen, we're going to the White House next Tuesday.
Yeah. And another part that was funny, too, was, Saquon Barkley was there. And Saquon Barkley was in the news a lot the week before because he, the couple days before, went out golfing with Trump and flew on Air Force One. Look, I understand people don't like Trump, et cetera. President invites you to go golfing and go on an Air Force One. Who the hell says no to that?
Listen, we talked earlier about flights. That's a flight hack.
Right.
That's the ultimate flight hack is to come back with the president.
Yeah.
There's no other flight.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that getting a ride on Air Force One, the answer is yes.
Yes.
We don't need to talk politics. We can just talk sports.
I'll fly back to the White House. I'll fly anywhere. Private?
Yeah.
I'll fly with the Klan. They don't bother me. I won't bother them. I'll sit. Where do you want me to sit? Fly. Talk amongst yourselves. As long as we land and I don't pay these extraordinary prices, let's go. Let's get there. One piece, all of us. You go your way, I'll go mine.
Derrick, that might literally be the funniest thing I've ever heard you say. When you got a kid coming out of school, when you got a kid who's got drafted, what advice do you give that kid about being involved or not involved in politics? Because I'm sure some of your players are very political, some of them are apolitical. What advice do you give those kids?
Well, the first piece of advice you give to any player is stay true to who you are.
Exactly.
But in that, there's lanes of being true to yourself. One, you want to be employable, right?
Right.
And so the better you are, the more employable you are. Therefore, you have a little bit more say.
Yep.
When no one knows of your talent,
Yep.
you're very under the radar. You should be quiet until you become this superstar and you can voice your opinion. As far as politics goes, no one's going to like your opinion no matter what it is. You're going to get half of the people who agree, and half of the people who disagree, and half of the people who don't care about what you're saying at all. So I just tell players, stay true to yourself. Don't be a follower, and you'll be fine. Like, don't follow anybody else's lead because that's their lead. Stay true to yourself.
By the way, what you said about stay true to yourself and be employable, I think there's a topic we should hit here, and that topic is Shedeur Sanders. Now, be employable seems like kind of one of the things that might have hurt him along the way in his job interview. Yeah. Remember, the combine's one thing, but you got to go interview with the teams. It sounds like he gave a hell of an interview to a couple teams.
Yeah. See, I think the issue with Shedeur stems further back than his generation. It comes from his father.
Yeah, interesting.
So his father learned a lot about not only the sport, but the business behind the sport.
Yep.
And he became sensitive to how things were run. So he brought his kids up understanding how this business is run and how you're used as a commodity and not so much as a person. He wants them to be looked at as people. So he said, you know what? You're going to be your own person. Yep. A lot of people don't like that in sports because they want you to be part of a group. Don't stand out. Don't be an individual. Don't have your own, identity. because we're creating an identity over here for all of our guys. Well, Shador has taken on a lot of the identity of his dad, right? Yep. And that could rub guys the wrong way. So I'm sure when he's in those meetings and he's talking to the coaching staff, the GMs, the presidents, and they ask a question and he answers it much like his dad would, it rubs them the wrong way because they want someone who is more of a follower than a leader. They would rather have him say, yes, sir, than, no, I don't do it that way. I do it this way, which is my way. And because of that, it could hurt his draft stock. Now, should it have hurt it the way it did? Absolutely not. That's why I think it was more stemming from his dad than him individually.
Well, him going in the 5th round's crazy, right? I mean, him going in the 2nd or 3rd round, I think you can get your head around that. But him going on day 3 is a little bit crazy. Yeah. And by the way, I lost a bet. That Alabama guy we talked about earlier, we had a bet. We were in New Orleans the day of the draft for an offsite. And that Alabama guy we mentioned, him and I bet he would go to New Orleans. And because we were in New Orleans needs a quarterback. And I lost my standard bet. You know what the standard bet is at the bullpen office? Do you know what we bet?
Dinner.
No. Well, no, yeah, well, yes. Actually, it is dinner. It's 20 McNuggets. That's the standard bet. I don't care what it is. It's cuisine, that's right. It's 20 nuggets is the bet. Let me tell you the funniest part about the 20 nugget bet, by the way. So have you ever met Rich Melman, the guy I started the fund with?
I have, yes.
So Rich, for you guys in the audience who don't know, Rich started a little game company back in 1982 called Electronic Arts. So Rich has been around the block a few times. I've known Rich almost 20 years. And Rich broke a streak on the day of the Super Bowl this year. And by the way, this was a gift to him from me. This was a gift. I've known Rich for 20 years. I had an amazing statistic against Rich Melman. Rich Melman, for 20 years, was 0 for life in every bet against me. Can you imagine? 20 years had gone by. He had never once won a bet against me. So the Super Bowl comes up. It's Kansas City rematch against Philadelphia. And he's like, well, Paul, I guess you get to take the Eagles. I said, Rich, I'm gonna let you pick. Wow. And Rich goes, all right, I'm gonna take the Eagles then. So out of pure largesse, Rich finally broke his 0 for life streak. Think about it, 20 years against one guy you've never once bet it. That isn't, I'm actually kind of sad my streak has come to an end.
Rich, I feel bad for you. I mean, anybody that loses 20 years in a row should stop betting after year 2.
It's only 20 nuggets though.
I had a friend that I worked with when I worked for the Sixers named Stu Cohen. And Stu, if you see this, man, I know you're going to laugh. We used to play a game at lunch called credit card roulette. Yeah. You know credit card roulette is?
Absolutely. Right. Somebody's got to pay.
So this started with about 3 or 4 guys going to the local sandwich shop around the corner from the arena. And Stu lost the first round. More people heard about it. They wanted to come. Stu lost the second week. And this thing swelled up to about 30 people going to lunch at the same time. Yeah. Stu lost for about 9 weeks in a row.
That's hard to do with 30 people. That's hard to do.
He started stamping. He stapled up all of the receipts around his desk. All the receipts and how they were growing all around his desk. And we played for dramatic effect. So with 30 people going, we said last card out is the loser. You have to pay. If it was 4 or 5 people, we'd say first card out. But with that many people, you go last card out. And the poor waitress, she knows that she just hit this guy with, a couple $1,000. It's tough. But still, on that salary, I commend you. I don't know how you paid for it, but it was that reminds me.
What's Stu up to now?
I don't know. I think he's still working to pay off credit card debt from 2000.
You broke the man. You literally broke the man. Good work, Brooks.
Well, the thing is, you shouldn't talk about credit card roulette until after you order. But for some reason, we'd say, are we doing this? And everybody say yes.
It's like Fight Club.
And now
no one talks about
Fight
Club. And you just,
so you order stuff you normally wouldn't eat for lunch. T-bone steaks and lasagna.
Lasagna sounds pretty good for lunch. Lasagna doesn't need to be that expensive for lunch.
I mean, if you're going to do vodka and a McDonald's sandwich for breakfast. You got to do lasagna for lunch.
Oh, man.
Only fair.
This might be the best day ever, Brooks. All right, Brooks. As always, good to see you on the Inside Game podcast.
Yeah, my man.